and we settled in down in Pando Valley. How many in the audience here have been up at the old Camp Hale site? Quite a few have been. It's quite interesting, I think, and is worth your time. Pando Valley extends from Cooper Hill on the south, really, up to almost the little town of Red Cliff, which is just down the valley at the north end of what used to be Camp Hale. This is where we used to do our rock climbing, and following our initial arrival here and in talking about Camp Hale, we did our training in the mountains all around Camp Hale, not too much in Camp Hale, even though the elevation up there is between 9,000 and 10,000 feet. But we did most of our skiing and training up around Holy Cross and Sugarloaf and 13,000 feet. And the camp itself was built really for a light division. And the 10th Mountain Division was never known as a mountain division until late 1944. Before that, it was considered a light division. And this was because in our regiments there, we did not have a tank company. We didn't have, that was in each regiment. We didn't have a tank battalion in the division. We didn't have the heavy or light or moderate artillery in a division because we couldn't move them. There's no way you could get around in the mountains with that type of equipment. What we did have was a lot of mules. Over 3,000 mules in the 10th Mountain Division, and they were used to carry the PAC 75 artillery, which was really quite a small artillery piece, and 3 mules would carry one weapon, two wheels on one, the breech on one, the barrel on the other, and followed by several other mules with ammunition. And this is about where I joined the division. I came out of basic training at Camp Roberts, California in late 1943. The 10th was looking for volunteers, and I was one of them that volunteered. There was about a dozen of us, really. And so we arrived, and they gave us 2 weeks to get acclimated to the altitude, which really took a little acclimation, too. At sea level and coming up to 10,000 feet was quite a difference. They gave us 2 weeks to get acclimated. We drew our equipment, our skis, our snowshoes, the rucksack, the weapons, and so forth. And generally, quite a bit of instruction before we did anything at all. And following that 2-week period, we went out for about 10 days of ski training. This consisted of learning how to snowplow, if those that didn't know how, do the stem pole Christie and a few maneuvers like that. And after about 10 days, you're on your own and you just improved and worked at it as you went along. I didn't do an awful lot of that. I did do some skiing for a little while until the company commander found out that I'd received my basic training in the 81 millimeter mortar. And we couldn't ski with those mortars. We wore snowshoes, and we pulled those mortars along on toboggans behind us with the ammunition. And I spent more time at that than I did in skiing. The riflemen, they did the skiing. After we completed our ski training, which took about 2 weeks, we decided that we were going out on an extended march up Tennessee Pass, and we left camp about noon one day, marched almost up to the top of Tennessee Pass, and by that time it was getting dark, and we took off the road into the National Forest area, marched for another hour or so, and the word came down the line that this is where we were going to spend the night. Well, one of the things that they had taught us while we were being indoctrinated and getting used to the elevation was how to sit your sleeping bag and equipment down and in the snow without getting all wet and too cold. But we did, so we stopped, had a D-bar for dinner that night. A D-bar was a little bar about 4 inches long of concentrated chocolate. And that was the dinner for that particular night. I think everyone was tired. They hit the sack, went to sleep, put a rifle in the sleeping bag with us, as we always did, and a canteen so it didn't freeze and so forth. So we had everything there in case of snow. And it was nice and clear when we went to bed. But in the morning, obviously I woke up right about midnight, and lo and behold, there was about 6 or 8 inches of new snow on the ground. And I shook the snow off my sleeping bag and got out of it and looked around. There was nobody there. And I said, oh my God, they moved out during the night and left me here. And I didn't know anybody. And I didn't know where I was. But I thought I knew the direction we came in from. So I got up quickly, got dressed, got my gear in the rucksack, and just about this time I saw the snow move over here in a little spot. And then pretty soon I heard people talking. And they were all still there. And what a relief that was. After we came in from the training there, we did just normal training. We did a tremendous amount of gunnery training. 81 millimeter mortar has a squad of about 10 people, a couple of people manning the gun, and others getting the ammunition up there and moving it. It's a rather unique organization, and our goal was always, and I think there's a goal throughout the Army, was to be able to move that weapon, set it up, fire 9 rounds on target before the first round hit the ground. Now that was a master thing to accomplish. We never made it. We'd get as many as 6 or 7 rounds in the air maybe time, but we never made it. The only place I ever saw that made was at Fort Benning. And those people would come out as a demonstrating team, set the weapon up, fire 9 rounds, disassemble it, and get out of the way before the first round hit the ground. And that's out usually about 2,000 yards. After we did quite a lot of training there, we went through what was called a D-series maneuvers. Now, this would last about 6 or 8 weeks, where we were tactical, no fires, no lights, nothing like that. This was good training too. It was hardy training, tough training, but it was good training. After we finished about the 8 weeks or so of the D-series, we moved back, and by this time it was early spring in 1944. The snow was beginning to disappear, and especially down near Red Cliff where we climbed rocks. This was interesting to me. It's also a little hazardous, I must say, but we'd drive a piton find a crack in the rocks, drive the piton in, pull yourself up, then reach on up, find another crack, drive in another piton, pull yourself on up, and you went that way all the way until you got to the top of the cliff, which was about probably 100, 150 yards. But quite a few people didn't want to do that. And quite a few, they didn't make them do them if they didn't, because that was pretty hazardous to get up there and then get frozen and not be able to do anything. So they didn't require that as something that they had to do. I found it to be sort of fun, and I enjoyed it. But after we came back from our rock climbing training, which lasted maybe a couple of weeks, we found out that our division was alerted to go down to Camp Swift, Texas. And this was probably about the end of May or 1st of June 1944. And we expected that. So we went down to Camp Swift, and did a lot of night training again down there, a lot of gun training. We really worked on being able not just to get 9 rounds in air, but to get them on target. There's a bracket of 100 yards out there, and you're supposed to get all of them within this 100-yard area. We've been in Camp Swift for just probably a month and a half or so, and my company commander called me in one day and he asked me, he said, "Have you ever thought about going to OCS?" And I had not really thought about that at all. And he was an OCS grad himself. He was also a Dartmouth grad. I thought a lot of that man. He was a great guy. And he told me that the people that went to OCS would come back to the 10th Mountain Division because of our mountain training. And so I told him I would go, and I put in my application anyway, and I took the necessary tests and appeared before the board and so forth. And fortunately, I was selected, went down to Fort Benning to the infantry school, and I was commissioned down there in December 1944. I was held in the pool waiting for replacements to go join the division. In about March, I got my orders to go to Italy, but en route I was to go out to Fort Reno, Oklahoma, pick up some mules, because they were still using a lot of mules in the 10th Mountain. And that's where I went. I got 720 mules and a little detachment of enlisted personnel, and I was a second lieutenant then. So we went, loaded them on boxcars, down to New Orleans, loaded them on a freighter, and I thought, by golly, we're finally on the way. And no sooner had we left the dock almost, we were one day out, and the ship's captain got a message and said, "Turn around and go back." And apparently the war was so near over at that time that they didn't need us or the mules. So we came back, unloaded the mules. I went to the South Pacific, and I don't know where the mules went. I didn't have anything to do with them from there on. But that, gentlemen, I know that's a very short capsule, but I wanted to just get the highlights of some of our training in the 10th Mountain Division. It was a great group of men. We had great training, and it was a wonderful organization to belong to. And I regret that I didn't go with them, because they did do very, very well in Italy. They annihilated 3 German divisions, and also they paid a price, because they were the highest casualties of any division in the European War. In 4 months, they had about 1,000 men killed and almost 5,000 wounded. So they had a tough time, but it was a great unit. Thank you very much.